We've seen a shift from people going to the gym to sculpt muscles, and now people are going to the gym because they understand that exercise is essential for longevity and vitality.
Hi, welcome to Resonate, Conversations and Life Lessons from Rancho La Puerta. I'm your host, Barry. The ranch is considered a fitness resort spa because we have over 40 fitness and wellness classes and hikes per day. Exercise and movement is one of the cornerstones of our philosophy of health and well-being. My guest today is Pete McCall, who is a movement and exercise expert and a frequent instructor and presenter here at Rancho La Puerta. He has authored 4 books: Ageless Intensity, Smarter Workouts, Functional Core Training, and Smarter Recovery. He also has hosted a podcast called All About Fitness, is a blogger, and a sought-after speaker. Today we will focus on the role of exercise and longevity. Hey Pete, welcome. It's good to see you today.
Hey man, how you doing, Barry? Good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know, we had much needed rain here in Southern California. You're also in Southern California, yeah?
Yep, North County, San Diego, and that's the fun thing. I'm only maybe about 65 miles north of the ranch right now, give or take. So we're kind of in the same area, sort of.
Yeah. Well, good. So I've been fortunate enough to really get to know you in the last couple of years, and you have the title. When I look at all your magazines and writings that you have done, you're a movement and exercise expert. That's what they call you, which is awesome, and you certainly have all the credentials for that. How long have you been in this exercise and movement field?
Since the years began with a 1 and a 9, if we can remember back that far, in the late 1990s, you know, as a young man, just enjoying being active. And honestly, Barry, what was funny was I was working on Capitol Hill. I was working in politics in Washington, D.C., and this was my part-time job, right? I needed a part-time job where I could get a free gym membership. You know, you're a young 20-something in D.C., you don't make much money. And so I was working part-time at a gym, at a health club to get free membership. And I'm like, wait a minute, you can make a living being a personal trainer? And that was 1998. And I kind of, realized that going to work in an office on Capitol Hill wasn't nearly as much fun as watching people become healthier and become a better version of themselves.
So when did you give up the Capitol Hill job then?
Fall of 1998. That's when I had been working for handgun control with Jim and Sarah Brady, working on gun control issues, and decided, it's a Republican Congress. Clinton was in the White House. There's a lot of stuff going on in 1999, 1998, 99 that made me think that, you know what, probably not going to be a good issue. So let me make a career change, and haven't looked back. I mean, it's been fun. The most exciting thing though, Barry, is watching the evolution of fitness and seeing how it's really changed within the popular culture over the last number of years.
That was one of my questions for you, is after you've been in the industry for like over 25 years now, and what have been some of the biggest changes that you have seen over those years?
That is, a number of years ago when we first started, right? People joined a gym, and what you did, you went to the treadmills, you went to the cardio, and then you went to the weight machines. One of the biggest things is that we've learned that movement is essential. It's not just one thing to go and do body part by body part, chest one day, back another day. But what we've really learned is that movement and doing whole body exercise is essential. So over the last number of years, I think, Barry, that just the way the gym floor has been laid out has changed quite a bit. And now people go to the gym to move. They do mobility exercises. They're doing body weight exercises. They're doing gymnastics. They're doing high intensity. And it really is, we've seen a shift from people going to the gym to sculpt muscles. And now people are going to the gym because they understand that exercise is part of a healthy and just essential for longevity and vitality.
Well, you just play right into my card, because that was something I was going to ask you about. The word longevity, it's kind of everywhere these days. It's the big word. I know that the ranch, this is our 85th birthday this year, and longevity is our theme. And I think in the last couple of years, the Blue Zones and those books and that media has gone everywhere. So longevity is the thing this year, I feel like. So what is your definition of longevity?
Longevity is a huge topic, right? It can refer to something biological, like us as humans, our lifespan, or it can refer to an inanimate object, like the longevity of a car or longevity of a house, right? How well it is built. The way I like to look at longevity ties into our health span, right? Our lifespan is how long we live from when we were born until we pass away. That's our chronological age. We can't really, there's not much we can do to manipulate that. But what we can change is our biological age. And that's really how our tissues, how our cells and everything function and behave. And that's one thing I realized a number of years ago is I was actually working for the American Council on Exercise, and American Council on Exercise is a certification organization. So part of my job was to understand the research and write the education for personal trainers. I was writing the certification and I was writing the education to help personal trainers maintain the certification. And what I realized, Barry, was that high intensity exercise had the same effect on the body, or had an effect on the body, that promoted growth hormone, it promoted testosterone, it promoted something called insulin-like growth factor. And those are three essential hormones for promoting muscle growth. And so that was like maybe in the 2011, 2012, 2013. So starting about 2011, 2012, I started doing lectures for personal trainers on how exercise can help clients or help the average population control the aging process. And that really is what we have to understand. And that Barry gets us back to like what's changing fitness is we now understand the role that exercise plays in managing a healthy lifestyle. I mean, some of us have known that for years, but longevity really is having the ability to, you have a balanced life. You do strength training, you do mobility, you do mindset or meditation, you eat healthy food, you're outside, you're being creative. And that's one of the fun things, man. One of the things I love about working with the ranch or working at the ranch as a seasonal instructor is everything that we do at the ranch promotes longevity. I mean, look at Deborah, right? Deborah is a shining example of how she lives her life. And that's, I think, what we all aspire to. So when you look at longevity, I think, is not only length of life, but it's quality of life and the ability to go out and live life to its fullest. And that really, to me, and I think that people that come to the ranch understand that, but that's the beauty of the ranch, is that everything we do there really kind of feeds into that and promotes, helps us just have a much better, higher quality of life.
Let's talk about a few of the specifics. I know that you mentioned mobility as one of the factors, right? I guess we call them, when I was in school, because my undergrad is exercise science. So when I was in school, it was, these are the components of exercise. And it used to be called flexibility. And I notice now it's kind of shifted to mobility. Why do you think that is?
Well, and that's a good point, right? Because the traditional components of exercise were flexibility, strength training, and cardio. And
right.
Flexibility is a somewhat, I don't want to say limiting, but it refers to joint motion. If I'm referring to a flexible joint, I'm referring to a joint that can articulate through its full range of motion. Now, tissue, when we start talking about muscle tissue, is extensible. So extensible means it can lengthen and shorten, right?
Right.
So mobility is just kind of a combination. The way I define mobility, it's a combination of flexibility and extensibility. You can control joint range of motion. You can control movement of the center of mass over a changing basis of support. And that really is where our approach towards mobility and towards flexibility has changed, is we now view it as a moving construct and not just static. Like if I sit and stretch and hold a muscle, great, but I cause the muscle to relax. I don't program the muscle how to work more effectively. Mobility training, when we do mobility exercises, we're programming muscles to control movement of the body through space. And that's the only difference is between mobility and flexibility, is mobility refers to more movement and control of movement.
I had read at one point that, people that hold, like flexibility used to be, you would be rated on a scale. Like, if I can't touch my toes, my hamstrings are not flexible. But then some people would, I know like dancers get to that point where they're super flexible, but then they don't have the strength to back up that flexibility. And that difference is where injuries can happen.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I think, one of the mistakes we've made in exercise over the years in the fitness industry is I think sometimes we call out the wrong things with the best intention. Like years ago when we had the sit and reach hamstring test, right? Or we had a static hamstring stretch test. Static flexibility doesn't tell me anything, right? Static flexibility is a snapshot, a moment in time. If I have you reach down and touch your toes, Barry, what does that show me right now? That means from you've been sitting all morning, we're having a conversation right now, and right now you probably can't touch your toes that effectively because you're not warmed up, you're not moving, the body's not pumping fluid, your body's not, the oxygen's not flowing, cortisol is not being pumped to produce energy for exercise, right? So that's another thing, is that really I think sometimes we put too many constraints about what exercise is supposed to be, and it has to be done a certain way. But really, exercise is movement. I mean, one of the
Right.
things that I love about being at the ranch, and I don't know how other people feel about this, is one of the things I love is I don't use my car. I don't have to get in a car. I don't have to get in a
Hmm.
vehicle. You're walking all week, and just that movement. I think one of the things I love is watching people reconnect with walking for transportation. You got to get from
Yeah.
one side of the property to the other, and that really just that alone is really that amount of exercise, walking for 15, 20, 25 minutes a day can really just make a significant change in somebody's health and
Right.
overall mindset. So,
Now let's move on to resistive or strength training. That's still a component. How important is that to longevity? And what does that really look like?
that's a $1 million question, right? One of the areas I think where fitness went off the rails and we could have done things better as an industry
Hmm.
is for years and years and years, we focus on the aesthetics, on what we look like, right? Strength training for appearance. Like I want big muscles. I want sculpted muscles. I want to look a certain way. That was what drove the industry for years, 70s, 80s, 90s, the bodybuilding culture. What we're realizing and what studies have been looking at the last number of years has been the metabolic health of muscle tissue. The muscle tissue, and specifically type 2 muscle fibers, is where your body metabolizes carbohydrate for fuel. So where strength training comes in, strength training relies on type 2 muscle fibers and type 2 muscle cells to produce energy. Those are the cells and the fibers in the body that metabolize carbohydrate into fuel. So strength training, yes, it gives us good looking muscles, and yes, it can help us, be stronger. But really, strength training, Barry, the power is its metabolic efficiency and its metabolic health. If you
Hmm.
do strength training 2, 3 times a week, the American College of Sports Medicine, the minimum recommendation is 2 to 3 times a week. That will keep the muscles working and help your muscles metabolize carbohydrate more efficiently. And I don't think a lot of people realize this. When I was reading through the research from my book, Ageless Intensity, what I realized is I can be an older adult. I can be in my 70s. I can walk daily. I can do exercise like gentle yoga. I can do water aerobics. That's great. But I'm using primarily the type 1 muscle fibers.
Hmm.
And type 1 muscle fibers primarily use oxygen and fat for fuel. I'm not metabolizing carbohydrates. So, really, it's essential that as we age, we do strength training, not for appearance, but to maintain and improve optimal metabolic efficiency. So your muscles, which is where your body processes carbohydrate, work and maintain that efficiency. Also, your muscles are what produce growth hormone, insulin like growth factor, and testosterone. So your muscle strength training does promote those hormones in the body. And that's one of the benefits, right? Is as if we strength train as we age, our muscles work efficiently for our metabolism, and it helps us look younger, right? Our body's producing the hormones that help us give the appearance of looking younger. It's not just about looking younger, but it's having that mindset and that energy level that still allows you to do your favorite activities. Doesn't matter if you're in your 60s or 70s, you can still enjoy the things that you did in your 30s and 40s. You just might have to slow down a little bit. That is the freedom that strength training provides.
Right. And I think I was thinking when you were speaking that, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we all did it so that our muscles looked really good. And now that whole group of people is the largest part of the population. And now we're all on the other end of that. So now we're getting definitely more concerned about what are the other benefits of resistive training. And when you say strength training, a lot of people have been trained that you have to do 3 sets. Strength training is, whatever, 3 to 6 reps, super high, heavy weight. Then there's the other, you want to get really ripped. You want to do 9 to 12 reps, and you want to do 10 sets. If you want to just work on tone, you do like 15 to 20 reps. So how does that all fit into what is resistive training when you get older?
I love that, man, because here's the thing, it all works and we should be doing all of it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that is the one thing. And again, the fitness industry has done a great job of promoting this message that we need to have some variability and some variety,
Hmm.
but we also need to have some consistency. So when we look at strength training programs work best according to what we see in the research if you do the same type of program and the same exercises for 8, 10, 12 weeks because you need that repetition. You need to perform the same movements. You need to perform the same patterns repeatedly so the muscles get conditioned to them. What a lot of people don't realize is the term tone, Tone. We refer to muscle tone, right?
Hmm.
Tone comes from the word tonus, Tonus.
Hmm.
Tonus means state of semi-contraction of the muscle fiber. That's the definition of the word, right? So when we look at muscle tone, what muscle tone is, it's a semi-contraction, a state of semi-contraction of the muscle. The way that we achieve that is by performing the same movement repeatedly for a number of times. So that's where strength training comes in. For a good strength training program, we'll do sets of 12 to 15 reps for a period of 8 to 12 weeks. And then we might change exercises and change movements, then do a period of maybe 6 to 8 reps for a number of weeks. And then we might shift it up again and then do a period of different reps. So what you're doing is you're challenging the muscles. That's what we call periodization. That science has been around for about 50 or 60 years and comes from the Soviet Union, which understood that if we want to really grow our muscles, we need periods of rest. And so what periodization does is it challenges the body to work at a certain intensity, and then it'll change the intensity on a structured basis, so you're not always performing the same thing. And I think most people have experienced this, right? If you do the same exercise program, it can provide some significant results. But if you do the same thing after a period of 10, 12, 16 weeks, your body has responded, the body has adapted, and now you're just going through the motions. And so I think in order for us to get the greatest benefit from exercise, we kind of need to have a consistent variety of our exercise program. We need to do exercise consistently, but we need to do enough different things that we're challenging the body. And again, I'm going to bring it back to the ranch, man. I mean, that's one of the things I love about it, right? Is you have the pools, so we can do water work. We can get water workouts for aqua strength because there is a significant benefit for that. We have the hiking trails, we have indoor cycling, we have pickleball, we have all these activities, so that we're not just relegated to one type of activity, but that we're using our entire body. So the way I like to look at it is our muscles become stronger in the gym. That's the way, but we use them in the rest of the world. We use them when we get outside and have the real stuff. But for strength training, there really is it all works. It just needs to be applied on a different schedule. And one of the things I've done for years as a personal trainer, Barry, is something I call seasonal periodization, where a season's about 13 weeks long, and we have 4 seasons in a year. So when the seasons change, chronologically is about when I change workout programs for clients and for classes. And they don't even recognize it, right? But if we're transitioning now, as we transition from winter to spring, I'll start changing the program a little bit. And that way we'll go to more of a spring-oriented, more of an activity-based workout. And then I'll change as we get to summer, and I'll change. That's the way I look at doing that. Is kind of I sneak it in there so that the people I work with are getting different workouts, but they might not realize it.
Right. And I want to go back because I want to ask this question too, is when you're doing a strength training, how important is it to go to complete muscle fatigue, or is that not? Because at one point that's the point of doing 3 sets, is because you're really fatiguing the muscle, or if you can fatigue the muscles in 1 set, that was good enough.
Yeah, that's a good question, because muscle fatigue really is the holy grail if we're looking at getting benefits from strength training, right? And that's Brad Schoenfeld, Dr. Schoenfeld's work for the last maybe 12 or 15 years has really focused on that. And what Brad has done in his lab is look at different rep ranges. Because as you said, for years, we operated on this notion that lighter weights and higher reps was the key for definition. But what Dr. Schoenfeld's lab has shown us is not necessarily the weight and the reps, is going to a point of fatigue or going to a point of near fatigue. Because if you lift to a point of where you can only maybe do 1 more repetition, that indicates that you've used all the motor units in the muscle fiber. And a motor unit is like a light switch. It's what turns the muscle fiber on. When a motor unit gets stimulated, it causes the muscle fiber to contract. So when you go to a point of fatigue, if you people listening to this have ever done that last rep is really hard and your muscles are shaking. That shaking is an indication of the nervous system activity turning on the motor units. So really, whether you're using a heavy weight, whether you're using a lightweight, or even if you're using body weight, the key for long-term success is doing enough repetitions to get to a point of slight fatigue where you are feeling that muscle shaking. That's where we want to work to.
Hi there, my name is Catherine Ring, and I am from County Kildare in Ireland. And this is my first time to Rancho La Puerta. And I really had no idea what to expect, bar the reviews from my wonderful friends. But I have to say, it surprised me on so many levels. It's got a fabulous mixture of spirituality, exercise, fitness, new things to try, wonderful hikes, and the food's been fantastic. So all in all, it's been a really, really nice week. I played pickle football for the first time. I did bungee, aerial yoga, some things. Oh, the sound healing was probably my favorite. things that I haven't done at home that I'm going to go back and look for. So that's been wonderful. Had a great week, and I look forward to coming back another time.
I hope you are enjoying today's podcast as much as I am. To learn more about our wonderful presenters and exciting weeks coming up at the ranch, go to rancholaporta.com and check out our events calendar. Make sure to mention the podcast when making your reservation to take advantage of a special offer. Some restrictions may apply. Your latest book, I believe, is called Ageless Intensity, High Intensity Workouts to Slow the Aging Process. So when you're talking about HIIT workouts, are you talking about more like the cardio component? I've heard you call it metabolic conditioning. Is that what we're talking about? Or are you talking about doing it with resistance training or doing it just in general with all your working out?
Well, I like that question. It's good because it can refer to both, right? Like earlier, we talked a little bit about flexibility. We have the three components. We have strength, we have flexibility, and cardio. And the way I look at this, not just myself, but a lot of performance coaches, is if you're breathing, you're doing cardio, right? Oxygen coming in, CO2 going out, carbon dioxide going out. But when we talk about exercise, we're talking about a specific energy pathway, right? If we're going to go hike coyote is probably going to be our aerobic pathway where we're using primarily oxygen for fuel. Whereas if we're going to do like a high intensity interval class, now we're using our intermediate energy pathway that we use something called ATP or adenosine triphosphate, stored ATP in the muscle cell. So when we look at that type of training, what we're doing is we're conditioning the body to boost energy to sustain activity. So metabolic conditioning, the way I define it, is you need to do high intensity interval training, HIIT, high intensity interval training, which the research, and I'm going to probably refer to Martin Gabala, Dr. Gabala's lab. Dr. Gabala's lab has shown over the years that when it comes to HIIT, it's the intensity, not the duration, that matters. So in my mind, in the context of HIIT that I talk about, I'm only talking about like maybe a 4 to 10 minute workout. That's it. And that can include, that doesn't necessarily include the warm up. You have to have a warm up and cool down. But I'm only talking about doing maybe 4 to 10 minutes total of high intensity exercise. And that's done in maybe 10 to 60 second intervals. And the whole point of high intensity is to get out of breath, because it's the high intensity exercise of when we really use carbohydrate for fuel. So if you're really huffing and puffing and breathing really hard, that's an indication that you're expiring carbon dioxide and that you're using carbohydrate for energy. And when you're sweating, in the muscle cell, glycogen holds onto water. So when you use glycogen for energy, it releases the water, and that's why you start sweating. So when we do high intensity interval training, for example, we're breathing really hard and we're sweating really hard. That's how we lose weight. That's what people don't realize, right? Is we actually, when we expire, when we breathe out, we're metabolizing, we're expiring CO2, and we get that from the fat that we burn in energy. So that really, so when you do high intensity interval training, it doesn't need to be a 30 to 40 minute high intensity workout. It just needs to be short intervals, 10 to 60 seconds for a total maybe of 6 to 10 minutes in a workout, and only done 2 or 3 times a week. I mean, what we're seeing is that type of stress on the body makes the body stronger. That's the tough thing about exercise, Barry, is there's so many different people and we can all do exercise our own way. And what we're seeing for long-term, for longevity, to improve the health span, we want to do exercise that's hard, that makes us sweat, that makes us breathe hard, 2, 3, maybe 4 times a week. But we definitely need to get out of breath, and we need to do stuff that's hard and uncomfortable at least 2 times a week in order to get the greatest benefits from it.
Sometimes I think people that are older fear that, high intensity exercise will definitely increase their chance of getting injured, which would stop them from working out. What advice do you have for someone like that?
I get it, because look, I mean, I got a bad knee, I got a bad shoulder, and the last thing I want to do is get injured and not be able to move or not be able to exercise. And when you're injured, you're in pain, and nobody likes being in pain. That's, look at the right exercise that's right for you, and that's going to be challenging for you. One of the things I love about the equipment we have at the ranch is we have rowing machines there. And we have the rowing machines in the circuit. And I love the rowing machine because that's a total body workout. We burn about 5 calories of energy to use 1 liter of oxygen. So the more muscles that we use at one time, the more oxygen we need and the more energy we consume. So that's where the rowing machine, you're not doing any impact, you're not compressing the joints, you're not having any ground impact. You're in a relatively seated position, but you're using the entire body. And what you're doing is you're getting out of breath and you're working hard. And when you do that on a regular, consistent basis, it changes your body. And that's what we need, right? We need to challenge ourselves. So that way our muscles adapt and that we learn how to become resilient and we learn how to do the hard things, right? Aging's not easy. We can't sit down. And that's the one thing about as we get older is we need to respect the fact that yes, we can get hurt, but what we need to do is just be smart about what we're doing. Another thing is using heavy ropes, right? We don't need to jump. I can have people do a heavy rope workout and get a great workout. I can have somebody throw a medicine ball. Those are all things where you can do high intensity stuff, but you're not getting the ground impact and you're not slamming the body with extraneous forces.
Right. So it sounds like, you could choose your exercise based on whatever's going on in your body as long as you get breathless.
Absolutely. And see, that's it, right? And one of the things we started at the ranch recently is rucking. And rucking is hiking with a backpack. So if you want to add some intensity, you can just grab a backpack, throw some weight in it. And that's what we mean by intensity is challenging yourself beyond your normal capacity. Right. And that's the other thing we've done right in fitness is, hey, we need to go all out. I mean, Jane Fonda was how many years ago? Go for the burn, right? I mean,
in the 70s,
to this
sure,
audience,
yeah.
audience listening, a lot of people listening to this probably worked out with Jane Fonda, but we don't need to push to the point of discomfort, right? We need to do hard stuff, but we don't need to push to the point of pain, but we do need to just challenge ourselves. And that just be smart, be mindful. And if you think it's going to hurt you, just figure out something else you can do, but get out of breath and challenge yourself to work hard.
So if I get in an argument with my mom on the phone and it really raises my heart rate, it makes me out of breath, does that count?
Actually, that's a good point. I mean, the hormones are the same, right? Because your body's releasing cortisol, your body's using epinephrine. That's the fight or flight response. And that's what exercise does. I mean, the immediate, when we start exercising, the reason why we have the warm up is what triggers the fight or flight response. So our tissues warm up, we have extra energy in our bloodstream and we're prepared for it. But you have to do physical energy to expend you have to do physical work to expend the energy. So getting mad at mom, I wish that were the case because you and I could both burn a lot of calories that way.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But unfortunately, you got to go do physical work.
Something that I've noticed that you've added, or maybe it's just been added in general since I started in fitness, is that recovery part is just as important for exercise as the other modes or modalities of exercise.
Yeah, and we can thank, a lot of this stuff, look, we can thank CrossFit for really changing how fitness is done, right? Because going back to what we talked about earlier, the open model of floor and more space and doing more high intensity exercise, that came out of the CrossFit community. The other thing that came out of CrossFit was doing all that high intensity exercise is we realized that, right, we have high intensity, but the body needs to recover from that. And that was another thing when I was working at the American Council on Exercise was during the CrossFit boom, was right when CrossFit was becoming more popular. You had, what was the other thing? Insanity. You had all these high intensity programs coming out, but nobody was talking about the recovery aspect of it. And so really what people have to realize is exercise is physical stress imposed upon the body. We can't just exercise and let the body adapt to that stress. We need to have, if we're putting a lot of stress into the body, physical stress into the body, we need to have strategies for how the body adapts that stress and mitigates that stress. Meaning, like nutrition is one. Like when we look at recovery, we can identify nutrition, hydration, tissue. Like we need to work on our tissue, and we need to identify rest. So we have refuel, rehydrate, rest, and repair are the four R's of recovery. So refuel, we need to get more carbohydrate into the system, and we need protein and fat, right? We need fat because fat promotes hormones like testosterone and growth hormone, right? So we need healthy fat. We need carbohydrate to replace energy we spent. We need protein to repair the tissue. We need water. Blood is about 70% water. So after we exercise, we need to rehydrate. We need to do tissue repair. That could be a massage gun. That could be like one of the high-priced massage guns. It could be foam rolling, or it could be my favorite, getting a massage, right? Going and scheduling. That's one of the big benefits about going to get a massage while you're at the ranch is that tissue work. What you're doing is you're removing the metabolites from the blood, right? So if you're sore the day after a workout, that's a lot of metabolites. They get stuck in the tissue. It's kind of like having exhaust trapped in the muscle tissue. So recovery takes into that mindset about, okay, I did a really hard workout today. If we just finish a workout, tomorrow's workout starts right now, right? So that means this is an athlete's mindset. My training session starts as soon as I finish this training session. I need to rehydrate. I need to refuel. I need to sleep. the most powerful thing we can do to recover after exercise is get 7 or 8 hours of sleep because our body repair. If you want to detox, I mean, and you know, the best detox we can do a lot of exercise, drink a lot of water, eat clean food, and get great sleep. That's what we do at the ranch, right? The best detox we can do is be active all week, sweat, get great sleep, and that's what the body does. And what I love, Barry, about working at the ranch is you see people come in on a Saturday, and you can see, you know, they're bringing the world in with them. They kind of come in, and you see over the course of the week what happens. You tell me what happens to somebody over the course of the week while they're at the ranch. How do they change?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a different person getting on the bus when they're leaving the next Saturday because it starts about like Tuesday, they just start letting go all the outside world and they're eating healthy. They're exercising every day. They're out in the fresh air. I mean, it's just a formula for making you feel better and be healthier.
And that's the thing, man. What we do there, everything from the exercise, the walking, nutrition, sleep, the hiking, the art, the creativity, the community, the collaboration. I mean, there's a reason why Deborah is rocking and rolling at 103 years old, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
let's be honest about it. And that is, I mean, I think that's what keeps people coming back is they recognize that what we do there is the recipe for no matter what you want to do. It's just, this is how we can have a long, healthy life.
I have one more question about the recovery. I don't think there's not a magic formula for how much time a person needs to recover, but are there certain symptoms or signals that your body gives you that tells you need to rest a little more?
I love that's such a great question, right? Because our body knows what it needs, and we just have to listen to it. So I think if you've been doing a lot of exercise, and as a young personal trainer, this would happen to me, I would be exhausted, right? I was teaching 3 or 4 classes a day. I was doing my own workouts. I'd be lying in bed going, I'm exhausted. Why can't I get to sleep? You know, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, my heart is racing. If you feel like that, if you feel exhausted, but you can't fall asleep, that's one indication that you're overtrained. And look back at your training schedule. If you've done 5 or 6 hard workouts in a row, day after day, that's just an indication that your levels of epinephrine and norepinephrine are up. That's basically what we call adrenaline. So having a racing heart rate and being tired, but not being able to fall asleep is one sign. Having nagging injuries like a shoulder injury or a knee injury or an ankle injury that won't heal, even though you're given a little bit of time off, having a cold. And what people don't realize, like, I love making this point with high intensity exercise, because like everything else, exercise is good for us, but too much is not good. High intensity exercise, Barry, will cause disruption in the muscles for about 24 to 48 hours. It takes about 48 hours for the muscles to fully recover from high intensity exercise. They need to restore carbohydrate and repair tissue. It takes the immune system about 3 days, about 72 hours to recover from a really high intensity workout. And so that really is another reason why we only need to keep high intensity workouts at 2 or 3 times a week, is because if we do too many high intensity workouts repeatedly, we weaken the immune system. So those are some symptoms. You're tired but can't fall asleep, nagging injuries, you have a cold, you're slightly sick but you can't get better because your immune system just isn't 100%. Those are all signs that, you know what? And I know, gosh, this is so hard, man, because when I was a competitive rugby player, you hate taking time off because not exercising feels like, right? When you don't exercise, you feel lazy, but sometimes rest is the best exercise that you can do because your body needs to repair and heal. And that really is, I mean, sometimes I would do that with clients. I'd give them the sign of absolution, make the sign of and say, hey, don't worry about it. Forgive yourself. Today, your workout is to go for a 20-minute walk and enjoy something on Netflix. Because really, sometimes when we just feel overstressed, the last thing we need to do is do physical activity and put more stress on the body. And you know what? I keep coming back to the ranch, but that's one of the things I love about a sound bath. Dude, I never realized how relaxing a sound bath was to sit there and do a sound bath and just meditate for 30, 40 minutes. Talk about a total recharge. But that's why the ranch is what it is, because everything there is geared towards just everything that we need in order to kind of keep our bodies working at 100%.
I like when you mentioned that you tell your client that, on the recovery day, you take a walk, maybe you dance, maybe you do something. I mean, you've quoted our owner or mentioned her a couple of times. She's 103 and she always says movement is life. Stop moving, stop living. And I think the other thing you said that I think is important, and maybe as we get older, we get a little more wiser about really paying attention to our body and listen to our body. Because for me, on my recovery days from weightlifting, I still do some sort of low-key cardio because I believe that movement keeps the immune system working, keeps getting the toxins out, and keeps working that way for me. So, people just need to figure out, what kind of works for their body, because we're not exactly the same.
No, but and that's the thing, man, is research. One of the things I caution people on is research will show us trends of what happens in the body. But the other thing is that research is not conclusive. And I hosted my own podcast for about 5 years where I interviewed a lot of experts. And the funny thing is, Barry, the more that somebody knew, like you talk to somebody who's a PhD, like a Dr. Schoenfeld, who I've referred to a couple of times. I interviewed him 3 or 4 times on my podcast. And the more that somebody knows, the less definitive they are with an answer. Right? Yeah. They'll say, well, we've seen this in the research. We've seen this in the research. So the final takeaway that I'll share with listeners is this: what we have seen, and there's tons of research being done every day, but really we looked at people like Deborah, people who are living the example in their 90s, over 100 years old. My mother has a woman that she hangs out with in her community who's 101 years old. And that woman is just vivacious and just, as energetic as all get out. That is what motivates me, right? In order to do that, it has to be consistent. We have to do it every day. We have to be active. We have to exercise. We have to eat healthy. We have to drink water. We have to get great sleep. We have to have good friends. We have to constantly be learning. Look, it's what a lot of ranch guests do anyway. It's just we have to understand that we have to keep doing it so we can really optimize what we can get out of our longevity and out of our lifespan. That really, that's one of the things, man. That's what I love about being affiliated with the ranch is it's like a longevity lab. I jokingly call it. I love going to work there. I refer to it as my longevity lab because you get to see everything in action.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Well, when will we be back at the ranch? Soon?
Thankfully, I'll be there a lot this spring, February, March, and then I'll be there a lot in April and May. So for listeners, if you're coming to the ranch, I look forward to seeing you in one of the classes. And if you have any questions at all about strength training and longevity, please, by all means, feel free to reach out, and I'm here to help facilitate that.
Well, and I appreciate you taking the time today. I learned a lot, as I always do, talking to you. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in just a week or so.
I'll be there in a few days, man. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Pete is a wealth of information. I feel like I could have talked to him a couple more hours about movement and exercise. We were talking about longevity and the role that exercise plays with longevity. And actually, they're team members. Exercise leads to longevity. Without exercise, it's harder to have longevity. We all know that exercise is important, and we've all exercised, but it is even more important as we get older. There's this misconception that as you get older, you can't work out as much, your body breaks down, etc. There's some truth to the fact that we need to exercise smarter as we get older, but we still need to exercise. And Pete debunks the myth that you can't exercise hard. He believes that high intensity training at least 2 to 3 times a week at any age is super important. Important for longevity, important for slowing down the aging process. By high intensity, he means you got to get breathless 2 to 3 times a week. Doesn't have to last long, 10 to 15 minutes. And then the other days, just move and everything counts. Biking, walking, swimming, even dancing. So there's no excuses. We can move every day and we can live longer. Until next time, this is Barry wishing you health and daily joy.